Welcome everyone at Real Talk with Reena. I am Reena, your host. Today, we're going to talk about a very special topic which is so important for every person on this earth, every businessman on this earth, every parent on this earth. And the topic is will. Why, how, when? Do we need a will? We don't. Or if we do, then what do we need? So let's talk today with Priyanka Shripad, who is a lawyer, a solicitor at KPM Lawyers. So welcome Priyanka to the show. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much, Reena, for calling me for the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Priyanka, the very first and very important topic is will. So what is a will?
Will is basically a legal document where asset distribution is documented, how your asset is distributed after your death.
Okay.
That's basically a will.
Okay. And why is it so important?
Because how do you tell others after your death, after anybody's death, how their estate going to be distributed? If you have a minor children, who will be the guardians for the minor children? And then what is your wish? You want to do some charity, you want to distribute an asset to your family or somebody else in your family. How are you going to tell anyone? You have to document it by yourself. That's where
true.
you can tell the world after your death, because will only applicable after the death of a person. A lot of people died in accidents, a lot of people die in hospitals, lot of people die in such a condition where they cannot really express themselves what they needed. When the person is capable enough to write a will or think properly, then the will needs to be there.
Documented.
Yeah.
Thank you. So what happens if someone dies out without a will?
So that means you have not documented anything, what you want to do, how your asset to be distributed, whether to your wife or parents or whosoever. Then state laws applicable according to the act, state or maybe commonwealth, depends upon where you live. The asset will be distributed according to the laws, very simply speaking.
Okay, all right. So whichever, and does every state have a different, like in Victoria or in any other countries, does every country, every state has their own way of distribution of the assets?
Yeah, absolutely. Every state law differs.
Okay, all right. Now, can a will be changed after it is written, and if so, then how?
See, it can be changed. Will is a one-time document and then first go. However, if you want to change, usually we try to redo the will. However, we have some sort of opportunities, ways at the time of making a will. Let's say you don't want to change who will be the beneficiaries, but you just want to change the
Like adding
assets in the will. That is easily possible. We have some ways to do that.
Yeah. But is there a number of times that a person can keep adding or amending his will until his death?
No, if you make an annexure sheet to the will, you can add it maybe every 3 months, 2 months, whenever you want, you can do it.
Okay.
Absolutely no problem. But if there are any change in the circumstances in your life, major circumstances, like there is a death in the family, there is a divorce in the family, or there is a remarriage or something else, then you better totally change the will and then discharge the prior will and make a new will.
New will. Okay. Now, how do the beneficiaries, get notified that there is a will made by their partner or any family member? How do they get after their death? So, how do they get notified?
This is the reason the will maker has to inform somebody in the family or friends that, look, if something happens to me, you need to contact this law firm or a lawyer or someone where my will is kept. Usually we don't recommend that will to be kept with anyone outside or a family member, because they will know what have you written in the will. Some people can be greedy or turn out to be greedy, so it is not recommended. It is always good to store with a law firm or some independent place. Maybe a post office also stores the will, I believe. So at least store in independent place and let them know this is where it is. Again, storing in a post office has a lot of other things. Somebody has to go and remove the will. There are a lot of procedures that needs to be taken. It's easier if you inform the law firm, because I'll tell you what happens. You can ask me a question. Okay, I'll tell that the lawyer, let's say 10 years after the will has to be, executed or taken out after my death, but the lawyer was not working at that time, not with the law firm, or something happens. What happens to that will then? So the question for this answer, if we are not available, this wills, whatever we hold, will be submitted to legal service board,
Okay.
who manages all the lawyers. So this will be safe with them.
Okay.
If the person cannot reach the lawyer, let's say lawyer died, let's say simple form, then what happens? This can be a simple question. That is why there is a board which has a lot of people. It's an organization where it works. So works for these kind of scenarios. They have a specific arrangement for these kind of things. If that in case of a death of a lawyer, or the lawyer was not working or not available in the kind of whatever the reason, this will be with the legal service board.
Okay, but then, one question that I asked you was that how does the beneficiary comes to know is that, you said that the person should notify someone in the family around that, my will is kept there, right? Is with this lawyer, right? But then you said if the lawyer dies, okay? So if the lawyer, God forbid, is going on road and died in a road accident, okay? But the will is with them. So the lawyer, usually with you guys, with the lawyers, do you submit the wills with the legal services on your own, or what happens then?
Usually it is not submitting when we have this kind of emergency in our life, or we decided not to practice. We have an obligation to inform the legal service board.
But what if the lawyer dies on road? Then what will happen?
That's what somebody will come into that picture in our place, see what are the documents we are having in our lockers or in our database.
Okay.
That will be handed over to some other person in charge, or in a worst case scenario, legal service board will have all the information about where this company has gone, how this got administered, or anything happens to the company or the lawyer. All the information will be kept with
them. Okay.
LSB. If you contact the legal service board, they'll give you all the details, what happens after that, who is the hierarchy in that law firm,
Okay.
where are the documents of that law firm, everything will be informed
There. All right, fair enough. Now, can a will be contested?
Yes, of course. And a lot of wills
We've seen in a lot of movies that that the will is made and then the kids just contest the will, that's a fake will.
Yes.
So what happens then?
It can be considered if the will not made properly and executed properly, and all the important essence are put in properly, the will can be easily contested. Irrespective, it can be contested, and I have a lot of examples which I have seen where it got contested.
So what are some common mistakes people make when they are writing their wills?
So they don't basically. Up to my knowledge, guardians, they need to specify who are the guardians. They know that there is one executor, but you have to have multiple executors in one estate. That is much beneficiary.
Okay.
People don't know that. They don't list their liabilities in the wills. They don't list it. They don't list the digital assets.
Okay.
So there are many
Digital assets like cryptocurrency and all.
cryptos
Okay.
and any digital gold. Nowadays, digital gold is very famous.
Yeah.
So these sort of things, they don't list it. And even the beneficiaries also, they only write for one beneficiary. But what happens if the beneficiary passes away prior?
Yeah.
So it has to go at the same time. The executor of the will doesn't want to execute that document.
Okay.
So you should have a substitution. So these are all the assets. Generally, online will doesn't. It's kind of a template without legal advice, because it's an asset. You earned your lifetime this asset, and you just cannot just make it for the sake of making it. You just have a proper understanding before you make and why you're making it.
Yeah. So that was my question. That there's a lot of online templates available on the internet. Should people use them? What is the drawback of using them?
See, that can be used if you have a proper knowledge of how that needs to be executed, what are the points to be included, what happens with some of the points, what are the issues for contention. It's always get it reviewed by the person, a legal person, at least the lawyers, so that they have because it doesn't cost you much nowadays. But if that is contested, your children or your loved ones will have to pay so much of cost to contest it and get back to the normal, whatever the asset you have planned to give them. So just everyone has to keep in mind that it's just not about few dollars, it's about their lives you're going to secure. Even with the guardianship, there are many instances people fought for the guardianship of the children.
Yeah.
parents, there are many instances which I dealt that parents died in an accident, they were fighting for the guardianship. One thinks that they'll get a property along with the children, that's the reason they want the guardianship. This is the same, both families, relatives are fighting. There are too many things happen after death. So we have it, the more certain you keep it, the more clearer you keep it, the much better the followed people, the whatever, your children or your family will be much happier.
So, but is it mandatory to have a lawyer for the will?
There is no mandatory. Honestly,
Okay.
there is no mandatory to have it. But it's, as I told you, as I explained to you, this is a legal document for your assets which you've earned throughout your life. It's better you have to rule out all the possible issues your children or family may face in the future.
Yeah.
Get it reviewed. It doesn't cost you much, but it will save lots of money, energy, and stress for your family.
Yeah. Right. So what are the what happens if the beneficiary is no longer alive when the person passes away?
That's what I said. That then there is, so that your will doesn't have any meaning because the beneficiary. That's what I said. The substitution
You need
needs
to
to
have
be
another
there.
beneficiary. Yeah.
Yeah. If one is not alive, at least the deceased estate should pass on to someone next to kin. You know,
Yeah.
next whosoever.
Yeah.
Maybe there are wills people ask me to do, like if my children are not alive at the time of execution of a will, then give it to charities.
Yeah.
Give it to some temples.
Yeah.
You can have many things. Even while the children are alive, everything they've distributed partly to some of the family members. After that, also they're given to charities.
So but what happens if there's no beneficiary? I mean, beneficiary is not alive.
Nothing. I mean, there is no will or there's no beneficiaries. Then the it applies to the state laws. I mean, nobody is there. You haven't written anything. There is an hierarchy. There is in the act, estates planning, you have some certain hierarchy to follow. First comes spouse, children, next brothers, sisters. Like, you have a hierarchy. If they are not available, they'll see who is next, who is next, who is next. If nobody is available, obviously government gets it.
Okay. All right. But if there is no will as well, like completely
The
no
same
will,
story.
the same goes to them. Okay. All right. So how do people handle issues like debts and taxes in their will?
They have to include in the will whatever their debts and taxes. At least, as I told you, even with the assets, it has to be added as separate annexure to the will, so that can be updated. Today you have 100,000 debt while you're writing the will. Maybe tomorrow you don't have debt at all, but your will shows there is 100,000 debt. So that needs to be updated if you have any major incident happen, or you've got a lottery and then you paid off all your debts. You had to pay off houses. This time the will needs to be updated. Just to save the cost, we don't need whole of the will, entire will, but we only do a certain extent, only an annexure sheet. Unless you tell us, no, I've changed, there is a change of mind, I don't want to give it to my children, I want to give it to a charity. Then you need to amend, discharge the past will and write a new will.
Okay. All right. Now, can a will be used to make end of life decisions?
End of life decision.
So like that, like I'm Indian, right? So I want, when I die, I want my ashes
Funeral
to go
wishes.
to funeral wishes. Like I want that to go
Yes,
to India,
you can put it.
right? So something
Yes.
like these kind of things.
Yes.
Or I want to go to this place, or can I be taken to this
Correct.
place?
My ashes needs to be put in Ganga or something like that. Like something, we all have
our
funeral wishes according to our lifestyle and then our spiritual thing. Yes, you can. Definitely, you should have it.
Yeah. All right. So one last question: that with the is making a will very expensive?
Nah, it's not.
Because a lot of people don't make the will. They think it's very, very expensive.
No, it's not expensive.
It's not expensive.
At least not at the cost of what they have to pay if there is no
Or
will.
losing if they don't have a will.
Yeah, and your guardian, your minor children, has no guardian.
Yeah.
And then later, once there is a death in the families, either side families, parents, paternal and maternal families come and fighting for those children. It's much, much, much cheaper to have a will, and the trusted person is in the will to take care of your
kids.
children.
Yeah, that's true. So, does the husband wife, can they get only one will, or do they need to have individual?
2 wills.
So everyone has to have individual wills.
Individual. Will is only one person.
Okay.
There is something called spouses, but still the will needs to be 2 different wishes. I cannot write my husband will. How can I write it? At the same time, my husband can't write my will.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's my choice, my asset, my property. I will write it.
Okay.
I have to write it.
Okay.
For you're a legal person, you're an individual person, even though you have a relationship of wife and husband. For an asset wise, you have 50%, your husband has 50%, right? It's divided. If one party dies, the other party gets the 50% of the other person. It's not like 100%. Obviously, it's together 100%, but he doesn't have a 100% to give you 100%, right?
Yeah,
Simply.
that's true. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for answering all the questions. And surely we'll get back to you with some more topics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reena.
So that was a very important information session today on will. Why will is important, how you can do it, and what happens if you don't do it. All the answers you just heard from the lawyer. I think she said it correct that, instead of losing everything, or instead of letting your kids lose everything or fight over after death over money, it's better you make a will, get everything organized, and everyone one day has to face death. So let's sort this out before you die. Otherwise, I'm sure you'll not be able to even live in peace in heaven. So thank you so much for today, for listening to us, and stay tuned, and we'll get back to you with more. Thank you.